is an intro sequence because YouTubers have those. It's an intro sequence because YouTubers have those. It's an intro sequence because YouTubers have those before they'll let their video start.
Yay! Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a series of middle-grade fantasy books written by Rick Riordan from 2005 to 2009, not including the senior year adventures which started in 2023. The series takes place in modern-day America, mostly New York, with the premise that the Greek gods are secretly real, the Greek monsters are secretly real, all of Greek mythology really happened, and the Greek gods are still around having kids with mortals. All of the books in the series are from the point of view of the eponymous Percy Jackson, a troubled boy with dyslexia and ADHD who is 12 years old at the start of the series and who shortly learns that his absentee father is actually a Greek god, which makes Percy himself a demigod because his mother is human. He goes to a summer camp for other demigods where there are friends and prophecies and adventures and betrayals and all that stuff. There are 5 original Percy Jackson books, generally beloved, 2 movies, significantly less beloved but with a cult following, a musical, well-liked, and I saw it off-Broadway in 2017, and now a Disney Plus series which, at the time of recording, is set to have at least 3 seasons, with each season corresponding to a book in the series. The video you're about to watch will cover Season 1, which corresponds to the first book, The Lightning Thief. Essentially, some thoughts and observations from before, during, and after the release of the show's first season, including, toward the end, some thoughts on how the second season should or might approach the adaptation of the second book, Sea of Monsters. Welcome to The Amity Elf's Percy Jackson Season 1 Adaptation Examination Working Title.
Children, I am thinking of the children. I am thinking of the children. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. If you're not tapped into the Percy Jackson fandom or into just the general news of the Percy Jackson Disney Plus show, news has dropped about the casting. Percy himself has been cast as Walker Scobell.
I'm Walker Scobell and I play Percy Jackson,
the boy who was in The Atom Project with Ryan Reynolds. Haven't seen that, but I've seen little clips of it arranged in videos called Why He's the Perfect Percy Jackson, etc. And he definitely seems like an actor who can bring the character to life, so good for you, Walker. Great job. And then more recently, like about a week ago, they cast Grover and Annabeth as Leah Jeffries and Arian. One second. No, I got an ad.
Celebrate every kiss with K.
Aryan. It's Aryan Simhadri. Okay, I looked it up and it is Aryan. So, we have our Percy, our Grover, and our Annabeth cast. It's very cool news and I'm very excited about all of them, but I am kind of going to be focusing on Annabeth in this video for a variety of reasons. Here's where you as a viewer are like, probably for one reason, right? Shh! Okay. We do have a black Annabeth now. In the books, Annabeth was described as tan-skinned and blonde and a typical California girl. Leah Jeffries is a black girl. She was cast in the role after having auditioned and done well. There is an unfair amount of discourse around this. Leah Jeffries is a child. The people who are online cyberbullying Leah Jeffries and getting her TikTok account blocked or whatever it was, I don't know how TikTok works, but the people who are like actively cyberbullying a child online because they don't like that the character is being played by a black girl, that's a horrible and unjustifiable thing to do. The people who are online just saying, I mean, listen, I just imagine the character as blonde and I don't like that she's not blonde anymore. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Let's put that later on in the video. We can discuss your thoughts and how I would address them. Rick Riordan has already released a statement about the backlash against the actress. Overall, I think it was a good statement that he released. I have some thoughts that I want to explore, but first I want to kind of dive into my thoughts on how the show will or should approach the race change of this character. Now, the character's appearance. There's been a lot of fan art and general speculation as to how they're going to adapt Annabeth's appearance. Is the actress going to have blonde hair as the character? In what way would they implement that? Is she going to have gray eyes as the character? In what way would they implement that? One person I saw on Tumblr who I guess wanted to distinguish themselves from the racists who don't like the casting of Annabeth said something along the lines of, well, now we're just gonna have another black character with special eyes and special hair, so how is that a victory? Which, I mean, okay, there is something valid in that statement. Rick Riordan's books do kind of have a trend of giving the girls of color hair colors and eye colors that don't come naturally. Piper has her kaleidoscope eyes because she's a daughter of Aphrodite. Piper is a character who is Native American. I believe she's of Cherokee descent. And Hazel is a black girl character who is given dark skin, but like golden hair and golden eyes because her father is Pluto. Piper has the kaleidoscope eyes, I suppose because Aphrodite is said to change appearance depending on, you know, the viewer's concept of beauty. So Piper's eyes, similarly, they're kind of, you know, change in color. Why do I keep doing hand gestures? And Hazel's hair and eyes are gold because Pluto is the god of riches and she summons gemstones to her, so it kind of ties in with that. But we don't really see a lot of that in the white characters is the thing. Percy does have sea green eyes, and Annabeth's gray eyes are supposed to be from Athena, but that's not outside of, like, that's not outlandish. Getting back on topic though, should Black Annabeth have blonde hair and gray eyes? I think nix the gray eyes entirely. The gray eyes are unsalvageable. Get rid of that. I don't want it. If they do give her gray eyes, I'm not gonna be mad, I just don't want it. As for the hair though, here's where I start, like, from most important to least important. Most important, not straightened at all. I don't think that her hair should be straightened. It's not flat ironed, it's not permed. I am not ideologically against having black characters with straightened hair. I just don't think that it would be a great look for this one. Going on the premise that her hair is not straightened and is in fact being worn natural, my next thing is I don't want it to be bleached all the way. Or if it's a wig, I don't want it to be blonde all the way. I'm thinking like from here down, like a half bleached, or just the tips or something like that. I think my top preference for her hair would be if she has like blonde feed-in braids, but not like blonde all the way, blonde at the bottom half. Feed-in braids. In my mind, Annabeth as a character, her first appearance is with feed-in braids that are blonde on the bottom half, and you know, she shows up, you drool and you sleep, etc. And at some point she no longer has the braids, like she takes them out for whatever reason, and maybe we get a scene like in 2019's A Wrinkle in Time directed by Ava DuVernay, where, you know, she's like washing her hair in a convenient water source, and Percy gets to see her with her natural hair, and just kind of silently appreciates it and doesn't comment on it at all. And her hairstyles can vary depending on the episode. Maybe in some scenes at Camp Half-Blood, we can just see her casually getting her hair done by a daughter of Aphrodite. That's a nice bonding moment between her and some other characters to show like, oh yeah, she lives at Camp Half-Blood full time. She has developed kinships with the other campers. She has a specific daughter of Aphrodite she always goes to get her braids done. Second point I want to get to, so we already covered the hair and eyes thing. Second point I want to get to is Annabeth's relatives. The people who are complaining that making Annabeth black means that Athena has to be black now, which means that the whole Athena cabin has to be either black or mixed race. They are, one, being racist by implying that that's an undesirable outcome. Like, oh no, now the whole Athena cabin has to be people of color, and Athena has to be a person of color. When will it end? Just like, I mean, do you just really not want to see us around? Jeez. And two, being deliberately or inadvertently obtuse about how the books work with regards to like the appearances of the gods, because it's very explicitly stated many times that they can choose how they look. If you've read the books that you claim to be so protective of, you know that the gods' appearances change. So like, Black Athena doesn't always have to be Black Athena if you're that mad about it. We can like every so now and then is a phrase that exists and is real. We could have a Black Athena and a white Athena and a Filipino Athena. Words are coming out of my mouth and they make sense and are good. She can look however she wants. That being said, I did see someone on Tumblr suggesting that Kiki Lane should play Athena, and I think Kiki Lane is really pretty and I want to see her in more things, so I am gonna go ahead and second that one and say that Kiki Lane should be Athena. The day the news of the casting dropped, I texted my friend just kind of being excited that we have our, you know, main trio cast, and this friend is a huge fan of Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus, so that's why I chose that friend, because I was just like, oh man, we gotta share in this excitement. And then the day after, I texted my friend again. I texted her and I was basically saying, wait a minute, so Annabeth's dad, what do we think about Annabeth's dad? I can actually pull up the text that I sent. I said, at the moment I'm thinking maybe it would be interesting if he's still white. Like, Athena is black, and Annabeth is a brainchild, so she looks like her mom. Would it be wrong though? I feel like dad who isn't there for his daughter would have a very particular vibe if he's black, and a very particular other vibe if he's a white dad who was given a black daughter by a woman he did not have relations with. I feel like there are a lot of different bad ways to do it. Although the fact that he's a professor and didn't fully dip on her already subverts the usual absentee father trope, so maybe it's fine. And my friend's response was basically that she thinks that Annabeth's dad should be black, but that they should just have other black fathers in the show, or black father figures who are supportive and not absentee as he is. Basically, so long as there is good black father representation in the show, it's okay if Annabeth's father is black. And the suggestion that my friend made was that Chiron, the centaur at Camp Half-Blood, who is kind of a father figure to Annabeth since she lives there and has been there for so long, that Chiron should be black, so that way Annabeth still has that relationship. And it is still being portrayed as, a positive black father figure and, a healthy black father-daughter relationship in media. It's good to see. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the backlash against the casting and about race lifting in general, because I've been seeing backlash against race lifting for a long time. I'm not gonna speak to whether the term is offensive, because I'm just using it because it's on TV tropes, so it's kind of more or less the official term right now. Whenever Blacktober rolls around, there's always people who are like, I don't like that you're drawing those characters as black though. And as you know, if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, just because I'm using an adenoidal voice does not mean that I'm being necessarily pejorative, necessarily. But anyway, let's dig into this. I'm gonna start by just kind of generously assuming that no one is earnestly saying, oh no, where am I going to get a white female protagonist who's blonde and book smart on a Disney show now? Likewise, the idea that this was done for quote-unquote diversity points is just racist. It's in the same league as if you're in college and you assume that a black person in your class who you don't consider very smart must have gotten in by affirmative action. If you're finding it easier to believe that they are receiving special treatment based on their race than that they are multifaceted and just have exhibited skills to those in charge of admission that they just haven't exhibited to you, because why would they? That doesn't reflect very well on your mindset. All of this to say, she auditioned for the role and the writer of the book series said that she was perfect for the character. So assuming that she's not good for the character just because of her appearance, despite never having seen her act, is not a good look for you. But now we're gonna talk about the not how I imagined her thing. First, I wanna do a tiny thought experiment, and then I'm gonna kind of just good news, bad news you on that train of thought. So suppose they cast someone blonde and white as Annabeth, and she had a different face shape than you imagined. And don't immediately say it's a false equivalency. I understand that it's not exactly the same thing, but we're kind of just going through the process here. Let's explore. So, say you imagined Annabeth with a round face. I think everyone imagined Annabeth with a round face. I can't imagine who didn't, but just assume you imagined Annabeth with kind of a roundish face, and then they cast someone with a very thin face. What is your feeling right now? Are you already saying that's not how I imagined her, I'm unhappy with this? Are you already posting on the internet about how you're not happy with the casting? I don't actually care what the answer is to that question, so if you're saying, yes, actually, I already would be pretty mad, then that's not an accomplishment. I'm not impressed by that, but we're moving on. As I mentioned earlier, the books described Annabeth as being a tan-skinned white girl with blonde hair. Now, suppose the person they cast for Annabeth was pale-skinned, very pale-skinned, straight up Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland level of pale. Would that register for you? Would you consciously go, wait a minute, she's pale? One comparable thing, I think, to this idea, Rue in the Hunger Games books is described very clearly as black, and when the movies casted the lightest skinned black girl to play her, light skinned to the point that it is actually significantly lighter skinned than the book description of Rue, when they cast a black girl to play Rue, there was a whole backlash about that, and there are already YouTube videos about that that are very good, so you should watch those. And I think this resistance to making even brown characters brown in your mind does have historical roots. When I was younger, I read the book A Little Princess, and it's about a girl who came from India. But that was before I knew about British colonization of India, so I was like, oh, she comes from India, and she's repeatedly described as brown, so I know what I think she looks like. But later on in life, I was like, oh, they mean tan. I was supposed to understand, oh no, I don't mean the color brown. Of course not. You think I'm writing this book with a protagonist who is a person of color? No, of course I mean a white girl who is tinted by the sun, the rays of the sun. Boy, I hope that when I edit this, it's gonna sound like a train of thought that makes sense and not just me rambling about various topics as they come to mind. This is exactly what I feared. Anyway, to the good news, bad news. I said I was gonna good news, bad news you, and here it comes. The good news, and don't use this as a bludgeoning tool in arguments, I'm so serious. If I start seeing people saying this, I'm gonna be very annoyed. The good news is, I believe you would have this reaction about things that aren't race. It is faint good news, and when I get to the bad news, I need you to listen to it. You also do it with hair color, which, granted, is highly associated with race. You and I together, we could have a fun little brainstorm session about how the things we get attached to about characters' appearance is related to race and social status and presumed class status, and then separately a conversation about how we might use that as an excuse to keep characters looking a certain way. Oh no, how can we believe this character is poor/starving? starving if they're not very, very skinny. But I'm sure if they made the Camp Half-Blood t-shirt blue instead of orange, people would be very annoyed about that because they got it in their heads that the shirt is orange, so why is it blue now? But I'm pretty sure they wouldn't tweet at the costume director or tweet at the child actors wearing the shirts that an adult decided to make blue. So that's your good news. This isn't absolutely exclusively a reaction you would have to race. I've seen so many people on Tumblr who are kind of whispering amongst each other like, I'm not comfortable with this Annabeth casting. Oh, thank goodness you agree with me. I was feeling like a bad person or something because all of these people of color are saying that if you're mad about it, you're wrong. But I wanted Annabeth to look like me. And like, listen. There's so many, you have so many, it's fine. This isn't absolutely exclusively a race thing, which doesn't mean it's not a race thing. Having it only partially be a race thing doesn't mean that it's not a race thing. It is a low bar to clear. The fact that you're willing to just quietly assume that they'll dye Walker Scobell's hair, but then like you get actively defensive or even passively defensive when Annabeth is cast as a black girl is pretty bogus, which leads into our bad news. The bad news is that this is something you just kind of have to get over. It's not something you can really rationalize your way through and be like, oh no, I'm right actually. You just kind of have to get over it. On this one, the idea that you're as bothered by Walker Scobell's hair being brown as you are by Annabeth being brown is not a defense for you. At the end of the day, the two aren't comparable. If the first set of set photos or like stills from the show have Walker with hair that has been dyed black, you are then satisfied. If they show Leah with like the feed-in braids that are blonde or a blonde wig or whatever, you're still gonna feel that discomfort on some level, and maybe not every level, but on some level you don't like to see black people where you don't expect black people, and that's something you kind of have to like push yourself until you stop feeling it. As I alluded to earlier, there are a lot of blonde characters who fill the character niche that Annabeth fills. There is even already a blonde Annabeth in the musical and in the second movie. And Annabeth's blondness isn't her whole thing. People who use her blondness as part of her character usually point to like, oh no, her blondness is a reason that she's underestimated. People underestimate her intelligence because she's blonde, and like every single person who's been a black girl in probably any Western school system just goes, oh, we really lose that in the transition, don't we? I'm trying not to be too sarcastic. Her blondness is less important as a character trait than her fear of spiders, and if the show included a scene where she just casually flicks a spider off someone's shoulder or something, the most I would react would be to kind of lean over to the person next to me and be like, you know, in the book she was actually deathly afraid of spiders because of her mom's, you know, past with arachne, and you know, I guess I'd push my glasses up my nose authoritatively like, haha, I remember a detail from the books I read years ago. The crucial character traits for them to hit are her strategic skills, specifically how they manifest, because if they get that capture the flag scene wrong, I'm gonna be a bit irked. Her fatal flaw being pride, that's a big one. Her love for architecture, her friendships, her defiance, like she's gotta defy that Sphinx, man. I gotta see that Sphinx scene. Also, and this is another thing that I'm worried is gonna be like used as a bludgeoning tool in arguments of people I don't agree with, so I hesitate to even say it, but by your own description of the problem you have with the casting, your problem isn't with a black Annabeth, it's with a lack of a blonde Annabeth, which while I've already said you have a blonde Annabeth in the musical and in the second movie, that means that it's the fault of copyright. The lack of blonde Annabeth is the fault of copyright, which says, oh no, this belongs to Disney, you can't make as many adaptations of Percy Jackson as you want. It's not the fault of the people in charge of casting this show, it's not the fault of Leah Jeffries. And I'm also not saying to change your rhetoric from I wish Annabeth were white again to I wish we had another show where Annabeth could be white or something like that, because we'll see through it and then you're still not confronting your apparent inability to just like feel the same amount of empathy for a black character as you would for a white character. I'm speaking about the gap in empathy between different races. If you're feeling less empathy for black characters than you are for white characters, then that's something you kind of already need to be working on. So looking through the eyes of a black Annabeth would be a good thing to do. Boy, that was everything on my list, but I feel like I want to keep talking. I didn't talk about Grover much. I've never seen that actor in anything, and curiously I haven't seen any online compilation videos of him being perfect for the role like I saw for Walker, which is like pretty suspect. Like, hey, y'all were really excited to make those little compilation videos for Walker, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing like a lot of crickets for Leah and Arian. Maybe it's just my YouTube recommended section. I'll search it up and see if I'm wrong. Maybe YouTube isn't sending me the videos like it sent me the Walker videos. But I'm sure they'll all be great for the part because they auditioned for the part, and Rick Riordan specifically said, hey, they'll be great for the part. And I saw one, like, I think it was a TikTok or something. I don't know. It was on Tumblr. I don't know where the video came from. Maybe Instagram or something. But I saw a video of Leah Jeffries talking to someone in like a stream who said, oh, I'm staying up late and I have finals tomorrow. And she was like, no, go to bed. You have to be awake for finals. And everyone was like, that is very Annabeth of her. And it's like, yeah, it is. I hope you enjoyed this ramble. The Twilight video will be next this time, unless there's some more great casting news in the interim.
Okay, here's where I cut in with the benefit of hindsight. Hi, it's the editing elf. So even now there are still people who somehow struggle with Black Annabeth, which isn't at all interesting in and of itself, but the forms this can take felt like something I wanted to discuss. It's almost like one of those iceberg videos, except instead of measuring how deep you are on the iceberg, we're measuring how much plausible deniability you have in the matter of Black Annabeth. The people with the most plausible deniability are the ones who say stuff like, I wish the show were animated, that way things could be more like we imagined it. Bear with me for a second, okay? I know that for the most part, people aren't saying this with bad intentions, but do hear me out. That sentiment is one I consider wrong in two different ways. For one thing, and this is a more subjective one, I don't relate to the idea that Percy Jackson would have been better as an animated show. Don't get me wrong, it could have been a good animated show. I like Prince of Egypt, I like Spider-Verse, I saw the first episode or two of Arcane and keep telling myself I'll get back to it, but never have. I get that animation is an incredible art form that can tell incredible stories in incredible ways. For me personally, I see Percy Jackson in live action. It strikes me as a fundamentally raw story. Its initial appeal to young readers was that it had a flippancy that set it apart from a lot of other books of the same genre. Again, I know that raw and wry animation exists, but as a matter of form and function, I think Percy Jackson is better suited to a format where there are extras in the background who look like they're having a good time, and a decent budget for clutter and gack. But secondly, and more objectively, it always strikes me as deeply suspicious when someone claims that animation would result in a show that better matches everyone's imaginations, because, again, as far as my own initial impression, that pretty much can't be referring to much more than the appearance of the characters. Why would you assume that the imagination of those drawing the setting in an animated format would be any more likely to align with your imagination than that of the set designers who handled the live action settings? Is it the weather that you need to be perfectly aligned with book canon? Because I can see weather being something that a production isn't always going to have perfect control over unless they are literally drawing it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the vibe I really get is that saying, I wish it were animation, then everything would look like I imagined it, is just a more socially acceptable way of saying that an animated format would remove any excuse to have characters be a different race than they were in the books. You know that if you say, I wish they cast a white girl for Annabeth, you will receive the response, Leah auditioned and was deemed the best for the role, and you don't want to be treated as the kind of person who would put the actor's appearance before merit, so you find this workaround where you basically imply that we could have voice actors chosen based on merit, but put them all behind white faces. Of course, the argument a person could make is, no, it's not about race, the CGI of the monsters is bad, and an animated show would be better because it would have the chance to be stylized about that. First of all, and not to go back to my subjective argument, but I really think that the monsters being in the normal, mundane, urban environment is a huge part of the point. I don't think seeing it in an animated format would hit the same. It could be executed very well, but I don't think it would match the tone of the books as well. You can definitely make the argument that practical effects are needed as opposed to CGI, or that CGI is fine but needs to be done better, but those are different statements than the animated show one. Again, that point is subjective, but I just thought I'd put it out there. Second of all, this reminds me of when The Little Mermaid 2023 was coming out, and a friend of mine asked a stranger at the movies if they were excited to see it, and the stranger said they didn't want to see it because Flounder didn't look cute enough. Internally, I was just like, do people genuinely care that much about Flounder looking cute? Why? Like, I get the problem with the CGI lions not being expressive enough in The Lion King because we need the characters' expressions as a part of the whole emotional package, but Flounder not being cute enough? Sure, it's something you can have a problem with, but I fundamentally can't relate to Flounder being the fulcrum on which the whole movie rests. In this case, I can't relate to the idea of seeing a monster and being like, that's not how I pictured it, this show sucks. This isn't me defending all of the Disney live actions. I liked live action Little Mermaid a lot. I liked Aladdin a little less, but it wasn't bad. I refuse to see Lilo and Stitch, though I have the utmost sympathy for the actors involved. Leave Rachel Zegler alone. I've got to shift gears back to Percy Jackson. And third of all, even if you genuinely mean for this to be about CGI and the aesthetics and not race at all, I think it's valuable to just take a moment and reflect on whether you'd be comfortable with an animated version of the show where the characters' races are still different. Even if you don't have race in mind whatsoever when you're saying that you want the show to be animated, don't use this imagined animated show as a way to avoid thinking about how you feel about the race change. The feeling of, I don't want this character to be black, should always be examined. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes there are good reasons to not want a character to be race lifted, but sometimes it is coming from a feeling of, I associate blackness with qualities I don't want this character to have, and that's a problem. Never forget that internet user who said they would be less sad about a particular Hunger Games character dying once she was cast as a black girl. Any way in which a character being black makes you feel differently towards the character is worth being aware of. But again, the I wish it were an animated show people aren't guilty of some great transgression. This is not a wholesale condemnation. This is a thought exercise more than anything. This is a wholesale condemnation because at the other end of the plausible deniability spectrum, there is a person on Pinterest and Tumblr whose whole thing is stealing fan art of Black Annabeth and making her white. Like, taking other artists' work and editing it without their permission to make the character white and posting it without credit to the original artist. Now, that one does genuinely read as both ethically indefensible and simply pathetic. Maybe as bad as the blatant art theft is how self-righteous they are about it on their Tumblr. Anonymous asked, "Hey there, I just wanted to ask why you feel the need to steal and whitewash perfectly good fan art of Leah Beth and claim it as your own. There isn't any valid reason to hate Leah, you're just being racist." To which the user responded, "Just nobody acknowledges Book Annabeth while turning right around and praising / drooling over Book Percy, so of course I'll do Annie justice." Do her justice. What a fun choice of words. Suggesting that drawing her as black is failing to do her justice. As if you, the art thief, have saved Annabeth from the indignity of melanin. The drooling over Book Percy comment is just an observation that sometimes Black Annabeth is drawn with a Percy who has black hair, despite show Percy's hair being light brown or blonde. Because when you draw Black Annabeth with black-haired Percy, at that point, it ceases to just be show fan art. Then it becomes book fan art that just happens to use Black Annabeth, which must be such an ordeal for you, given how often Annabeth is specifically described as Caucasian in the books. No, not once. She's never once described as Caucasian in the books? That's weird. Then why does this person feel so strongly about it? Oh no, did they assume the character had to be white and then grow suspiciously attached to that assumption and now they're on the wrong side of history? That's so embarrassing. I hope they read a grown-up book one day. Sorry, that was mean.
More importantly, it was not a valid axis of attack for this specific conversation. You can read as much children's literature as you want.
Coral Paradise Song asked, "You can draw pretty well, even if you don't use it for good, so I just wanted to ask, do you have any of your own art that is purely yours?" "Yes, I do, but obviously I'm not going to share it through this account." Yeah, of course you're not, because people don't like giving positive attention to art thieves. But hey, at least you've poisoned the pot, so now anyone who draws White Annabeth might be you. Cool to know. I'm sure that won't influence how much attention I give to White Annabeth art in the future. Anonymous asked, "Do you think the Percy Jackson fandom will ever go back to normal and we'd see more original Annabeth fan art once the show gets cancelled? I still think it would not reach season 3, but honestly, I lost all hope in the fandom. The show's existence made the fandom unbearable. It's basically a show fandom echo chamber now. I hate it when people like things. It makes me so sad when people have a good time. I keep seeing brown everywhere and I'm so scared it won't stop. Won't someone please make the Percy Jackson fandom great again?" Anyway, the art thief opines that eventually things will go back to normal and people will only draw Annabeth as white, to which I reply, "Have you met us?" The show didn't pioneer the idea of Annabeth being non-white. The show was cast in 2022. There was Black Annabeth fan art long before that, and if there was Black Annabeth fan art when the fandom consensus was that she was white, there will definitely continue to be Black Annabeth fan art now that a very well-liked adaptation of the show cast her as black. I was talking to a kid about liking Percy Jackson one day, and a different kid jumped into the conversation to say, "I like the black girl. What's her name? Annabelle?" And I said, "You're almost right. If you're you're waiting to see a Percy Jackson fandom without Black Annabeth, you will still be waiting in your grave. The only option is to grow up. I'm sorry about it, but you just need to confront the fact that you're too focused on race. This isn't me saying to go send that person hate, because I still believe that everyone can turn around their bad behavior if they choose to, and also hate is attention, and clearly attention is all they want. Their stolen art is not doing numbers. Pretty much all the love is going to the original artists, as well it should. The ratio is not in their favor. So don't send them an ask that they can use to go on another tedious monologue about how much they don't like the show. If you actually make a good point, they can just choose not to answer you. This section wasn't for them. It was for you to turn a mirror to yourself and say, am I this person? If I'm not, what is protecting me from becoming this person? Under what circumstances would I behave like this? But that being said, it's also important to look at all of this and ask yourself a question that I frequently ask myself to avoid getting in unnecessary fandom drama. Who's winning? Who's winning? Is the random art thief tearfully painting Black Annabeth white actually in a position of power here? Because there's reason to fight power. There's no reason to fight misery. It's our job to give support to people who need and deserve support and rebuke what needs to be rebuked. Support the original artists. Don't reduce the discourse to this one person's ice-cold takes. Leah Jeffries does not need this person's approval. She's got her job and she's getting her flowers. Everyone knows Leah's doing a good job. There are bad actors in fandom who do win. The bad behavior of the Star Wars fandom is definitely winning. The way Rise of Skywalker handled Rose's character made it clear enough that the worst of the fandom is being heard. The bad behavior of the MCU fandom, I would say, is winning, but I'll either make a separate video about that or I won't. At present, I don't think that the bad behavior of the Percy Jackson fandom is winning. I think that the good behavior is the behavior that's being rewarded right now. If I could provide a thesis for this little aside, it's basically, see this behavior, don't be like this, and don't interact with it. Just reward those in fandom who are acting right. Now, back to your How did I mess up that part? Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Well, I don't think I want Kiki Lane to play Athena anymore. I think we could maybe spare a less beloved actress for that. Boy, it would be mean if I gave an example, wouldn't it?
We're in a sanctuary. Athena would have had to let her in, but why would she do that?
I embarrassed my mother.
But I'm the one who sent the head to Olympus.
And I went along with it. Now she's angry.
Or I could keep fan casting Kiki Lane. I mean, it would be interesting to see her play a character who's just absolutely spiteful. I would actually, you know what? I still want Kiki Lane to be Athena. Bring me some Moral Grey. You're exhausted, listening for a voice that can't speak. Manico mio caro. That one's for the true fans. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. This is the Amity Elf, and I know what you're thinking. The Amity Elf glasses today. Yeah, I decided to wear my glasses in this video. One of my aunts has told me that I've not been providing good glasses representation in past videos.
Also, and this isn't related to pretty much anything, but I was talking to the same aunt on the phone recently about ducks, and when I informed her that male ducks are called drakes, she was annoyed that there's no word for female ducks. And after some brainstorming, we came up with Drew. Like there are two drakes and a Drew. So if you'd like to weigh in on the spelling of that, we're between D-R-U-E and D-R-O-U-X. I'm leaning D-R-U-E myself, but if you have a preference, let me know. Also, start sprinkling it into your standard duck conversation so we can make it a real thing. Peace and love on planet Earth. Female ducks are now Drews.
So here we go, they're on. We pop these suckers on and I can see. This is one of the few videos on my channel where I can see while I'm making it. Ooh, I got a comment on my fanfiction. But yeah, so the Percy Jackson show, that's happening now. My last video on the subject was just over the casting, and not even the casting of everyone, the casting of the main trio. And now we've got episodes. As I'm recording this, episode 5 has just dropped like yesterday. Needless to say, I'm enjoying the show tremendously. Everyone in my circle who I've interacted with is enjoying the show tremendously. Everyone seems to have a few little notes, like a few little things that they would change if given the choice, but the overwhelming atmosphere that I have witnessed is one of great enjoyment and great analysis. Oh my gosh, the parallels between Medusa and Annabeth. It's really cool. It's not a wholly accurate adaptation. I find that because it stays true to the themes of the book so much, and because it stays true to the characters so much, I don't mind the deviations of plot or like narrative. I find that it feels true to the books. I didn't need the poodle scene. Poodle scene wasn't really what I was in it for. You want a scene where a person doesn't want to talk to an animal but is pressured to talk to an animal, watch Emperor's New Groove. But this video isn't about the entire show, although like once all the episodes are out, maybe I'll make a video about the entire show because I have a lot of thoughts. This video is specifically about Clarisse, which is cool because she is a like pretty minor character this season. Clarisse La Rue? Clarisse La Rue? La Rue. Wait, Clarisse La Rue. I didn't Google it. I know that I looked down so it seemed as if I was about to Google it, but I figured it out in real time. Clarisse La Rue. I figured it out. I do have to Google it to make sure, because if I confidently say it's La Rue and then it's something else, I'm gonna be, it is La Rue. Okay, we're good. Everything's fine. And you may now be thinking, the Amity Elf, you could have edited that out. That's disingenuous. You think I'm some kind of a liar? You look at me and see Kokichiyoma from Danganronpa V3? This video's become more nonsense than I meant for it to be. Let's get back on track. For those who stumbled in here fully lost, let me just quickly clarify. The Percy Jackson series is a series of books and also a little bit movies and one musical. A little bit of background just to kind of establish a timeline here. According to Wikipedia, Rick Riordan initially pitched the Percy Jackson TV adaptation, or Disney Plus adaptation, in December of 2019. By May 2020, the show was actually happening and in the works. And it was in 2021 that they started looking for directors and cast and all of that stuff. June of 2021. 2022. It was 2022, not 2021. Has only got the casting for Clarisse. The character of Clarisse in the Percy Jackson show is portrayed by Dior Goodjohn.
Revenge is more fun.
The actress does not have a Wikipedia page.
She has had roles before on Glee and on Raven's Home.
But before we get into the nature of the casting, first let's talk about the character of Clarisse. In the first book of the Percy Jackson series, Clarisse La Rue exists pretty much just to bully Percy. Through her bullying, we discover Percy's powers, and also him being bullied is a vehicle by which the reader can feel sympathy for him. But as far as like sheer narrative value, in the first book, her main thing is she's a daughter of Ares, the god of war. The fact that a daughter of Ares is immediately antagonistic towards Percy kind of establishes his relationship with Ares early on, and that's going to be important for later. The fact that she does bully him and he does fight back is what reveals that he's a son of Poseidon, and is what enables Annabeth to win Capture the Flag that one time. Because Annabeth is a battle strategist, she's able to predict what Clarisse is going to do in response to her vendetta against Percy and use it against her to win Capture the Flag. So Clarisse is there to establish Percy's credentials to the camp, but she's also there to establish Annabeth's credentials to the reader. That is her narrative purpose in this story. She doesn't really have all that much of an internal life yet. She doesn't really have relationships yet. That's kind of her main thing right now, is that she establishes Percy's credentials to the camp, establishes Annabeth's credentials to the reader, and establishes how we feel about Ares before we meet Ares. As far as physical description goes, here's how she is described in the book. Cabin number 5, the Ares cabin, was bright red, a real nasty paint job as if the color had been splashed on with buckets and fists. The roof was lined with barbed wire. A stuffed wild boar's head hung over the doorway, and its eyes seemed to follow me. Inside, I could see a bunch of mean-looking kids, both girls and boys, arm wrestling and arguing with each other while rock music blared. The loudest was a girl maybe 13 or 14. She wore a size XXL Camp Half-Blood t-shirt under a camouflage jacket. She zeroed in on me and gave me an evil sneer. She reminded me of Nancy Bobofit, who was a bully from earlier in the story. Though the camper girl was much bigger and tougher looking, and her hair was long and stringy, and brown instead of red. Okay, so what we know about Clarisse's physical appearance as of now is as follows. She is big, she is tough looking, she has brown hair. A little bit later, we get this description. I looked over. The big girl from the ugly red cabin was sauntering toward us. She had 3 other girls behind her, all big and ugly and mean looking like her, all wearing camo jackets. Okay, so we added ugly to the party. Cool. So we know that she's big, we know that she's mean looking, we know that she's tough looking, we know she has brown hair, and she has been described as ugly. Initial thoughts are, I do think our first descriptions of Clarisse may be a bit fatphobic, like might kind of have a hint of fatphobia going on. The fact that it's like, she's big, she looks mean, she looks ugly. I think that the fact that her bigness is put into the conversation alongside those things is maybe not ideal. It's left up to the reader's interpretation whether he means big as in fat or big as in muscular. My read on it when I was a kid was always that she was kind of both. I was visualizing someone kind of, stocky in build. And in later books, she gets more of a personality beyond like not liking Percy. She has friends, she has a boyfriend, she has a girl who's a close friend of hers who people think she should maybe be in a relationship with. More on that later though, we're gonna get to that later. So we get this description of Clarisse. It doesn't mention race pretty much at all, but there is a strong chance that later books will be like, she blushed pink, or she blanched at the sight, or something of the sort. Or it could just be the fact that white is taken as the default in a lot of stuff, but that's not the point really. That's not really, listen, we already had the race lifting video about Annabeth. When I heard tell of this casting, I had a different reaction than I did to the casting of Annabeth, and it was kind of a, oh, so they made the bully a brown girl. I wasn't mad, I was just kind of fascinated of like, oh. The casting of Annabeth as a black girl came before the casting of Clarisse as a person of color, so I was already primed to be fine with most things. Any concern I might have had if it was, oh, these are our white protagonists and this is our brown girl who bullies them, it was averted by making Annabeth and Grover both people of color. If there is a diverse cast, then there's no problem with putting people of color in places of antagonism. That's fine. So like the momentary pause that I had with like, oh, the brown girl's the bully, I don't know about that. It was like 1 second long, and then I was like, it's fine. It's probably fine. This is gonna be fine. The next thing that came to mind was after kind of interacting with other fans on the subject of the casting of Clarisse, because some people on Tumblr next brought up how in Sea of Monsters, the second book in the series, Clarisse commands a ship full of Confederate soldiers. The reason this happens is because she's on a quest for her dad, Ares, and one of Ares' things is that he has control over armies that lost. The dead spirits of armies who lost their wars are in service to Ares, so Clarisse makes use of that for her quest. And I don't know if anyone really thought much about that scene before they made Clarisse a person of color. Once she was a person of color, people were like, huh, that puts that into a new context, doesn't it? I liked it. Like, right away, I was like, hold on, that could be pretty awesome. Like, she could straight up bully them, and that would be pretty interesting to just have her, like, being ruthlessly mean to a bunch of people who are in her employ, but we don't feel bad for them because, like, and here's a problem that I ran into when I was writing my Twilight fan fiction. People who aren't from America maybe don't always have a ton of context about the Confederacy. The reason it's a thing is because the Confederacy was the side of the Civil War that was fighting to keep slavery of black people. There are those in America who say that they were fighting for states' rights, to which there are those who reply, yeah, the states' rights to keep having slavery of black people. And also slavery was explicitly mentioned in the Confederacy's constitution, as I recall. I'm not a history professor. If you feel differently, I'm not gonna flunk you. We don't know each other. I'm just gonna judge you personally in my own mind. But yeah, so the dynamic there of brown girl commanding a ship full of people who were pro-slavery. Maybe we get a few moments where the protagonists are like, hey Clarisse, we're not on your side. And then the Confederates are like, yeah, and they're like, we're not on your side either, obviously. Maybe they won't play with it. Maybe, like, I could definitely see them making the decision of like, hey, let's not even have that scene. Let's make it a different losing side of the war. Let's go with, hey, what was that war that you were talking about, Grover? Lobster War? Yeah, whoever lost the Lobster War. But that was just a matter of race. The actress they cast for Clarisse is also very slim, and she's very conventionally attractive. On one hand, I think that the way the book handled her body shape wasn't ideal. I think that the whole narrative of, like, she's fat, and she's ugly, and she's mean, like, I think that it really plays into this archetype of, like, the fat bully. Statistics say that fat people are more often bullied than bullies. It's not kind imagery. But in later books, she has more nuance to her. She has more positive relationships. We see her as a human being. After the first book, Clarisse isn't anyone's favorite character. No one's like, hey, but how about that girl who almost gave a swirly to the protagonist that one time? Even if you like characters who are mean, she doesn't do enough stuff for her to be your favorite character in the first book. But after a few more books where she does cool things and she is sad about stuff and she's happy about stuff, once you've been with her for longer, she could conceivably be someone's favorite character. And if someone has the body shape of Clarisse and Clarisse is their favorite character, maybe it's not doing them a kindness to strip away the elements of body diversity that she does have. And this has been consistent in every adaptation of Percy Jackson. In the Sea of Monsters movie, Clarisse is cast as Levin Rambin.
It is pronounced Levin Rambin, and I should have guessed that.
She was in The Hunger Games as Glimmer. She's very thin. She's very pretty. The fact that she played Glimmer in The Hunger Games tells you she's very pretty, because Glimmer's only thing was being pretty and being bad at archery. And also, like, dying by wasps. Second time she's adapted is the Percy Jackson Lightning Thief musical, which I saw off Broadway. I was there. I saw George Salazar. I saw Chris One second, I'm gonna actually look up the name of the Clarisse actress though before I get lost in it. Sarah Beth Pfeiffer. She was played by Sarah Beth Pfeiffer in the Lightning Thief musical. She's not stocky, she's not big, but we are gonna circle back to that aspect of it a little bit later when I talk about my next thing. And now here we have another slim actress playing Clarisse. It just seems like we've never depicted Clarisse as stocky or fat. This is something that happens a lot. Divorcing it from the valid reasons they might have thought they needed to do this is something that happens a lot, is that thin actors get cast as fat characters, and either they just jettison the fat aspect entirely, or they put the thin actor in a fat suit. Instead of casting someone who is fat, they're like, no, we're gonna get someone thin, and we're gonna put some stuffing on them. And like, why? For what? The Matilda musical movie on Netflix did that with two different characters. Like, the Trunch Bull was played by Emma Thompson, but in a fat suit, and Bruce Bogtrotter was played by a thin boy in a fat suit. The kid did a good job, but how many roles are there for fat kids that get to sing a whole little riff? I think I've pretty much presented both sides of that one. We don't want to have harmful imagery of fat people, but also how many roles are there for fat people? I'm not going to tell you how to feel about it. I will take a little bit of time aside to say that Dior's performance is really good. Like, she's really good as Clarisse. She's very enjoyable. She's very engaging. You really get the sense of her wanting to beat this kid up. I love that. Kind of zooming out, where do we go from here as far as Clarisse? So I have an idea. So in the books, I mentioned that Clarisse has one boyfriend and she has one friend who she's very close with, who a lot of people think she should date. The latter is named Selena Beauregard. Selena Beauregard is a daughter of Aphrodite. She is a very complex character. I'm not going to spoil the books. Daughters of Aphrodite are very pretty. They're very like charming. People like Daughters of Aphrodite a lot. Well, I guess people don't like Drew, but that's like a whole other can of worms where people say that it was kind of anti-Asian to portray her that way, but that's not what the video's about. My thought is they should cast Selena as someone who is fat. If their reasoning for making Clarisse thin was to avoid negative imagery of fat people, it could be very cool to have Selena Beauregard, who is fat and who is very beautiful, who everyone likes, who has a boyfriend, who has a friend, who has a deep character. In the Lightning Thief musical, I guess there's different casts for Selena, but in the production that I saw and in the production that the soundtrack was recorded of, she's played by an actress who is not thin, the same actress who played Percy's mom, and Charon the boatman, the guy who boats you across the river Styx, Charon, is also played by her. And I think that's cool. That's what I want out of future casting. If you remember in my previous Percy Jackson video, I mentioned that I was discussing the casting of Chiron with a friend who's a Percy Jackson fan. I was discussing this matter with that same friend. Clarisse won me over. I wasn't sure about casting someone thin, etc., but I enjoy the sadism she brings to the role. I feel like we need more thicker set roles for girls, but it would be great if Selena got to be thick set. Oh, don't get me started on Clarisse. I thought we were gonna get a fat butch lesbian and I was so excited. But hey, the sadistic, conventionally attractive popular girl thing is also a take I can respect. And to my point about Selena, she replied, yeah, maybe they'll let her be fat. I hope so, because we don't get a lot of fat it girls in movies and TV shows, and I think because it's a tween YA show, they have a perfect opportunity to normalize it and let some kids see themselves as cool and popular and confident and fat, because it happens IRL all the time, so I don't know what the problem is. Problem is fat phobia, but that goes without saying. And then I said, oh, I think I might make a video about this because my mind is whirring with my mind is whirring with possibilities. Okay, the Amity, I'll pipe down. But back to the Selena thing, because my mind is whirring with possibilities. There are a few depictions of beautiful fat women in media, or beautiful fat girls in media. One caveat to that I've seen mentioned in other YouTube videos before, this girl is often required to perform femininity and like high fashion and lots of makeup in a way that is not often required of equivalent character types that are played by thin actresses. When Homegirl from Euphoria has her glow up, she is like decked out in like beautiful clothes. She's like got all the makeup on. She is done up. The conceit here is the fat character should be as allowed to be beautiful and to be seen as beautiful when she's dressed down as the equivalent non-fat characters. And casting a fat actress to play Selena would allow this because Selena's gonna be wearing a Camp Half-Blood t-shirt. She's gonna be like training. She's gonna be fighting. She's gonna be doing all the things a demigod does in the clothes a demigod wears to do it. And she's gonna be drop dead gorgeous to everyone. And that's great. Since Disney likes to kind of use the same actors for stuff, I could see them maybe pulling in Homegirl from High School Musical, the series. I didn't actually watch High School Musical, the series, but I did see clips of it in reviews. Like I saw Jarvis Johnson's video about it, and I saw pretty much its multiple videos about it. I believe that her name is Sierra Renee, and I'm gonna look that up now because if I'm right, I'm gonna be very happy with myself. Nope, I'm thinking of a different human. I'm thinking of, okay, here's the thing. Sierra Renee played Elsa on Broadway, and I enjoyed her performance of Elsa, and I conflated it with High School Musical, the series Elsa thing. Okay, who is Dara Renee? Wait, is that Dara Renee? That's why I got them conflated, is because they have really similar names. So they have, wait, are they related? She did stunts on Blackish, or, oh, maybe that's a character name. I was gonna say, what stunts did she do on Blackish? Sorry, focusing. Okay, her Wikipedia page does not mention whether she's related to Sierra Renee, but that's wild that like two different actresses who look a little bit alike both played Elsa for a Disney thing. Well, you can't play Elsa for a non-Disney thing because Elsa is Disney. She's owned by Disney. She belongs to Disney. She's in Disney shackles. Man, Dara Renee and Ciara Renee. They've got to be related, right? Okay, hold on. I do have to check that. Looks like Sierra Renee's last name is Harper. Sierra Renee Harper. So Renee is her middle name. Okay, so it's Sierra Renee Harper and Dara Renee. Now, and also it looks like the accent is on a different E, like on Dara Renee. Yeah, on Dara Renee, the accent is on the last E, and on Sierra Renee, it's on the middle E. Huh. I hope you enjoyed that journey I just took us all on. Dara Renee is beautiful. She would make a good, wait, how old is she? Okay, Wikipedia doesn't want to tell me how old she is. The actress who's playing Clarisse is currently 17. Speaking of looking up Dior Goodjohn, if you type Dior Goodjohn race or Dior Goodjohn ethnicity into a search engine, it'll more likely than not direct you to one of those articles that are like, celebrity name, race, age, height, and stuff, you know those articles. And they say some wacky stuff on those. They refuse to just admit that they don't know what her race is, so they say stuff like, oh, her mixed race heritage really contributes to her, like, they just try to make it all flowery, and it's just like, just say you don't know. Just say you don't know what race she is. Honestly, I only looked it up for this video. I didn't want to go in there saying that she's black and have it be like, she's not black. But also, if she is black, then people might not like it if I say person of color the whole time. There are those who would feel poorly towards that. I think I've covered just about everything. I covered the book description of Clarisse, I covered the race of the character, the body shape of the character, the potential Selena thing that I think they could get going. We're enjoying the show, right? Like, we're all enjoying the show. They nailed the characters of Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. Like, the direction they're taking Grover is really interesting and cool. Like, I like him manipulating Aries. I saw a Tumblr post by someone saying that when they read the books, it was hard to suspend their disbelief in the matter of Grover being able to trick a Cyclops for days on end into thinking that he's gonna marry him. But having seen the show, this Grover seems like he could totally trick a Cyclops for days on end. And yeah, I completely agree, actually. I didn't have particular opinions on Grover's ability to do that. I was willing to take the explanation of, like, the Cyclops can't really see that well and I'm wearing a dress. Like, I was willing to take that as at face value, but this Grover for sure can pull it off. Like, I honestly am not even worried about him. He can handle it. If he has to, well, no, I was gonna say if he has to marry a Cyclops, he'll do it, but that sounds like a lot. That's too much. But yeah, the people who were worried that Leah's performance as Annabeth wasn't gonna be good, they owe me $10, I'll say. That's just, you know, I'm not the wronged party here. I'm just an opportunist, so I'm just gonna say $10. People are kind of weird about Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I feel like I missed out on what their reasoning was. At the very least, they shouldn't be insulting his appearance as much as they are. Like, a lot of people are, like, talking crap about his appearance, and I think that's really mean. Like, regardless of what's up with him, you should not be doing that. Because like I said in the Harry Potter video, there are a lot of people who are saying, please don't support Harry Potter because J.K. Rowling is actively being harmful to these communities. So when you jump in saying, yeah, and her stuff isn't good and the characters aren't interesting, heh, you're kind of taking attention away from the actual problem. You're pulling the attention away from, hey, here's what J.K. Rowling is doing and it's bad, to, hey, you're a grown-up who likes a book for children? That's so cringy. Making up fake things to be mad about takes away attention from whatever you're actually mad about. So if you're mad about a thing he believes or said, then be mad about that. Don't then decide also that you think his face is ugly, because there's other people who look like Lin-Manuel Miranda. Like, I was at an airport and I saw a guy who looked a lot like Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he was attractive, he was pretty, he was a good looking guy. The first scene of him as Hermes, honestly, is a Lin-Manuel Miranda about to be on my screen? And it slowly panned up and I'm like, is a Lin-Manuel Miranda about to be on my screen? And he was! Boy, you know how earlier I said, I think I've covered all the bases, and then I started, like, rambling about the show? The show's really good though, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. They're leaning very Percabeth in the show, like they're kind of giving us Percabeth stuff pretty early on. I think that it's gonna pay off when we have to deal with the thing that's gonna be revealed in the last episode of this season. Probably, like, that's probably where it's gonna be revealed. When we have to deal with that, I think that that is going to introduce some strife between Percy and Annabeth, possibly, and when that does happen, I think it's gonna be very interesting to see, because they've gotten so close on this quest. And also, it's great to see the way that they've influenced each other's characters already. The way, like, it's, sorry, I need to stop. I'm gonna talk about the show when I make a video about the show. This is about specifically Clarisse's casting and also Selena for later. But anyway. Greetings and salutations, beautiful humans. This is the Amity Elf, the only person on the internet who's right about this show. Let's do this. That was a joke. Everyone's opinions are valid except for the people who are wrong. Get in the water. I'll make tidal waves so profound, both your wife and your son will drown. Get in the water! I'm not gonna do the high notes because people live here and they didn't sign up for all that. First of all, thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. I promised you guys a video about how I feel about the show as a whole, and this is partially that. It's also a video about my thoughts on season 2. Yes, we're getting a season 2. Basically, my thoughts on what they're gonna do for season 2, what they're gonna change relative to the book, patterns that were established by the first season that I think they should try to change in the second season, and the ways in which the changes they've already made to book canon are going to affect later things. Okay, so the way this video is gonna be kind of divvied up is, first section is gonna be stuff I was right or wrong about in the previous Percy Jackson video. By the way, this video is about Percy Jackson. Sorry, I didn't exposit anything. I just started talking. This video is going to be about the Percy Jackson Disney Plus show. I'm not going to explain too terribly much about that because I've made 2 videos about it prior. First section of this video is going to be stuff I was right or wrong about in my previous video. Second section is going to be my overall thoughts on season 1 of the show. That section's probably going to have some shades of my how I would rewrite videos because there are a few things that I would tweak, but I did love the show quite a bit. And the third section is going to be the things I think they'll change in season 2 and just general thoughts on season 2. I'm so glad we're getting a season 2, guys. And as a fun little segue between the segments, I'm going to use the consensus song from episode 3.
Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy 'cause I got me some friends who just can't get along. Oh dear.
Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy 'cause I got me some thoughts about when I was right and wrong. Oh dear, I'm going to outline them, but I'm not going to do it by singing this song. Cool, yay. That was fun. That was fun. This is a fun channel. You guys should like mess around and like and subscribe. Okay, so one item that I was right about in my previous video, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was so glad I snuck in that little like, hey, I don't know why people make fun of Lin-Manuel Miranda so much. I don't know what he did. I'm glad I casually said that in the previous video because then when the casino episode happened and people started posting, actually Lin-Manuel Miranda was pretty good as Hermes, I was ahead of that wave. Yeah, you're not gonna catch me riding a bandwagon. I drive the bandwagon. Is that better? That's pretty much it for that item. I just felt a little proud of myself. Haha, I stood up when it wasn't popular. Which of course means that now I'm gonna find out, oh, people don't like Lin-Manuel Miranda because he did this particular thing that's actually really bad. Listen, I don't have a Twitter and I'm not accountable for what other people do. And even if he did do something horrible, I'm still right about not making fun of his appearance because that's not anything. One thing I was wrong about, and I was wrong in 2 ways with this one, which is very interesting. And I forgot to mention this, but yeah, this video is gonna have spoilers for the Percy Jackson books and show. In my previous video, when I was talking about how Percabeth was progressing, I made a mention of like, I think when the last episode's twist happens, it's gonna introduce some road bumps into the Percabeth situation. I think that it's gonna pay off when we have to deal with the thing that's gonna be revealed in the last episode of this season. What I was basically trying to allude to there was the fact that Annabeth loves Luke, and Luke tries to kill Percy at that point in the book and reveals to Percy that he's the traitor, and Annabeth throughout the first series has difficulty coming to terms with that, and that is kind of a point of contention between them in the books. The first way in which I was wrong was that I was misremembering how the events went down in the book. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna describe for you how things went down in the show and how things went down in the book, just objectively, and then I'm gonna kind of go into how I was wrong. So in the show, Percy gets back from the quest still not knowing that Luke is a lightning thief, and he, Luke, and Annabeth formulate this plan to reveal that Clarisse is a lightning thief because that's what they believe at this point. The nature of this plan is that Annabeth's gonna be by herself following Clarisse, or keeping an eye on Clarisse, and Percy and Luke are gonna be off together somewhere else in some, secondary location, while everyone else in camp is having a big loud celebration. Percy and Luke are kind of talking, and over the course of the conversation they're having, Percy finds out that Luke is the one who stole the Master Bolt, and Luke is like, sorry man, yeah, I did do that, and I did kind of make a plan where you were gonna fall into Tartarus to deliver the bolt to Kronos, that's my B, but you gotta understand, here's my motive, here's why you should actually be on my side. Actually, we should be bringing back Kronos and waging a war against the Greek gods. Percy's like, no, that's not right. They're both kind of crying, and it remains a largely verbal sparring match until Percy brings up Luke's dad, and then Luke is like, oh, you brought up my dad, that's my berserk button, now I gotta fight you physically. And they have a sword fight. At first it's a pretty chill sword fight, but then it becomes a no chill sword fight, and Luke is probably gonna kill Percy, or at least seems like he's gonna kill Percy. But then dagger flies, and it turns out Annabeth's been here the whole time, invisible, watching.
I've been here the whole time.
She's like, I heard everything. And Luke is like, Annabeth? And they look so vulnerable, and that part is so good. That scene is so good. Everyone looks so sad and unhappy, and I love that. So sad and unhappy. Wow, what 2 different things. So yeah, that plays out. As soon as Annabeth shows up, Luke is like, oh, I don't want to fight you guys anymore. So he jumps through a portal, and he's gone. Of course, the implication there is that he doesn't want to hurt Annabeth, but people who weren't paying that much attention earlier to the fact that Annabeth is like a sister to him, people who, haven't read the books, or people who only watch the first few episodes one time and don't have that, locked in their brains, they only perceive it as Annabeth's a physical threat, so he doesn't want to fight her. Or Percy and Annabeth are outnumbering Luke now, so he doesn't want to fight them. That's okay, it's fine. That's how the scene plays out in the movies. In the book, what happens is Percy is just kind of walking around and he comes across Luke training. He notices Luke has a different sword than usual, and Luke casually mentions, oh yeah, this sword? Yeah, it has 2 kinds of metal. One that's only for monsters and other immortal things, and one that also harms mortals. Think nothing of that. Anyway, want to go alone with me into the woods for no reason? And Percy's like, I don't know. And Luke is like, don't worry, I have Coca-Cola. And Percy's like, I'm in. So they go to the woods. They're just talking. Luke is being kind of ominous the whole time, and Percy is not getting good vibes, but they're friends, so he kind of just ignores that. After Luke has done a few weird things, like he litters, and one of the rules of camp is, oh, you don't litter because there's actual nymphs and dryads here who will attack you if you litter. But he litters, he doesn't even care, and he keeps like saying cryptic stuff, and finally Percy's like, hey, you're acting like you're gonna leave or something. Luke is like, I am gonna leave. Also, and he snaps his fingers and a scorpion comes out of the ground just like under Percy. And Luke is like, by the way, this scorpion will kill you. Let's talk about how I'm evil. And then he just kind of talks about how he's evil for a while. Percy is like, hey, how about we fight one-on-one instead of you killing me by scorpion? And Luke is like, no. How about no? Why would I do that for you? It worked for Ares. It was a good try, but no, Luke is the son of Hermes. He doesn't have that need to overcome you physically. So Luke leaves and Percy's just like, hey, spirits, can you save me from the scorpion venom that's actively killing me right now? And here's what I forgot, because I remembered the scorpion, although I misremembered it as multiple scorpions, not just one scorpion. I remembered it as a bunch of scorpions that were crawling on him or something. I don't know what that's about. What I forgot was when Percy wakes up with the ambrosia and nectar that has healed him, and Chiron and Annabeth are there, he says that Luke did this and that Luke is trying to bring back Kronos, and Annabeth pretty immediately is like, yeah, I believe you. He's kind of been weird since his quest. And that's something I did not remember was the case. I was remembering more her broader characterization throughout the series where she was more willing to hear Luke out and stuff. I had forgotten that she pretty immediately is willing to believe that Luke is trying to overthrow the gods. I had misremembered that as like a point of contention. Like I thought that she had a degree of, I don't believe that that's the case, which makes it really funny because I saw people commenting about the fact that she was there to hear it, and they were saying that ruins her whole arc for later. And no, it doesn't. It doesn't ruin it, because in the first book she already believed him. It's not that she didn't believe that Luke did it, it's just that she knows that Luke did it, but believed that there was still good in him and something worth salvaging because he's her brother. And also I guess because she had a crush on him in the books, but that's not important. The show fully like abolished that. One second, I gotta take some beef stroganoff out of the fridge. So the TLDR is when I was saying that the twist at the end of the first season was going to maybe put a rift between Percy and Annabeth, what I was thinking was that Annabeth was way more in denial about Luke than she actually ended up being when I reread that section of the book. And also I think a lot of people are under that misconception. We're way more on track than I thought we were. Annabeth knowing for a fact that Luke did it because she saw him versus Annabeth just believing Percy right away almost impacts nothing in the scheme of things because she's still going to care about Luke because she still has that history with him. Between sips of nectar, I told them the story. The room was quiet for a long time. I can't believe that Luke... Annabeth's voice faltered. Her expression turned angry and sad. Yes, I can believe it. May the gods curse him. He was never the same after his quest. So yeah, pretty open and shut. She believed right away. It was like mid-sentence she believed it. The Amity Elf, is that the movie version of the book cover? Yes, it is. It's not because I didn't read the books until the movie came out. I had read the books long before the first movie came out. I actually obtained them from the local library. Yeah, that's right. I patronized my local library to read my Percy Jackson series. So I guess you feel pretty bad now for making fun of my movie book cover. I guess you feel pretty bad. I guess you want to cry. I guess you're gonna cry in front of me.
The Amity Elf, who's this pejorative voice you conjure up to argue with during your videos? The people who actually watch your videos are overwhelmingly supportive.
Well, guess what? I'm an adult. I'm not beholden to reality. This isn't even a hairpiece. It's a necklace. You don't know what I'll do next. Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy cause I got me some thoughts about all of season 1. Oh dear, just a few little critiques, but the overall vibe is that I had a lot of fun. Okay. Next thing's next, yeah? First of all, the reactions of people who haven't read the books are very fun and they put a lot of things into context. I purchased and listened to the commentary tracks that Pretty Much It made for season 1. That was not a light decision. I sat there deliberating for a while like, man, if they didn't like it, I'm gonna feel really mad if I've paid money to listen to them not like it. But it's okay, they mostly enjoyed it. There were times when they weren't paying attention when I feel like they kind of should have been, but that's par for the course when you're listening to commentary tracks, it's okay. Overall, they seem to have a good time, and the reason I'm bringing this up, the way they reacted to things that I, as a fan of the books, am very much used to, it was a lot of fun. Like, it was fun to see them like, oh, it's like a summer camp! That's such a cool idea! Like, it was fun. And of course, there's the entire fandom's little smiles that we wore as we watched the people on TikTok make edits of Luke and be like, he's a gentleman, he's a good guy, and we're all just like, just waiting for them to get hurt. That aspect of the experience is very fun, and I hope that people who are fans of Percy Jackson were able to enjoy that, because I think that sometimes people get so passionate about their thing that they become kind of curmudgeons. Nope, I don't want to say curmudgeon. I said curmudgeon a couple days ago, and it's not a word you should use too often, because then it seems like you just learned it. You get kind of cantankerous about deviations or new things and stuff. No, sometimes it's fun. Sometimes you can just have fun. That's not to say that people who are upset about changes that were made are wrong. I'm just saying that when I see people who are very upset about changes, I kind of sit there and go, are you not having fun? Because I'm having fun. And it makes me sad if you're not having the same amount of fun that I'm having. Which maybe isn't the best state of mind with which to approach things, but who cares? Okay, an actual critique of the show though, and I am not even close to the first person to mention this show refused to let them fall into any traps. It's actually quite amazing how dedicated the show was to never letting these characters walk into a trap unknowingly. And I had varying feelings about this throughout. With Medusa, I was fine because I enjoyed their approach to Medusa, and I enjoyed the idea that Sally told Percy about Medusa and contextualized her as not necessarily a monster. She was a victim of circumstance. I like that we gave her a chance. I like that we gave Medusa a chance first. And I like what it did for Sally's character for her to have imparted that lesson to Percy. I think that was very good and important. With the Lotus Casino, I had mixed feelings about their choice to not let the kids just, go in there like, let's have fun. Mainly because it's more fun for the viewer if the kids just go in and have fun than if they skulk in there like, okay, we're on a mission. We can't let ourselves get distracted. When you're a kid reading the book and you're seeing, oh, they've got cotton candy in there. They got video games. They're playing games and having fun. You're like, yeah, I want to go to that place. I realize it's a trap, but it's fun. I don't mind that they went in to look for Hermes. It wasn't the case in the book, but I don't mind it. But the way that we didn't get to indulge in the fun of the place is maybe something that I think was a mistake. When the characters go to the Lotus Hotel and Casino, I want to be hit by colors and visuals and things that look like a good time. Like the Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzaplex in Security Breach. I want to look at the place and be like, oh man, I kind of want to go there actually. But I didn't mind it. I mean, I would have preferred it to be more book loyal, but I still enjoyed what they did do with the casino. I really enjoyed the conversation they had with Hermes. And I enjoy that, first of all, Hermes let them miss the deadline because he was too busy venting. He knew that Percy had a thing with his dad planned, and he's like, I'm gonna let you miss your thing just because I'm sad about missing my stuff. Like, okay, Hermes, you're petty, I get it. But he still gets to come across as kind of a good guy relative to, like, Zeus. They threw in a little Easter egg where you can kind of hear a little kid calling out Bianca during one Grover scene, which I tried to point out to my mom, but she simply could not hear it. I can kind of hear it. They've acknowledged that the D'Angelos are in the casino. That's very fun. Not to get ahead of myself with regards to the season 2 section, but Rick Riordan has said that Raina and her sister are going to be at Cersei's place in the same way that Nico was at the casino. Like, there's gonna be probably like a little Easter egg of like, oh, we heard Raina calling out Hilla from across the room. Or maybe Cersei will be like, Raina, come over here, but we never see Raina because of course they're not gonna cast that character so far in advance. So yeah, I like the changes to the Medusa section. I was lukewarm on the changes to the Lotus Hotel and Casino section. The Procrustes section I was actually upset with. I did not like it at all. I kind of would have preferred they cut it than do that to it. First of all, I don't like that they walked into it knowing it's a trap, because they definitely could have gotten away with Percy not having heard of Procrustes. Second of all, the idea that Percy walked in there with a full lucid understanding that Procrustes kills people who sleep in the beds or lay in the beds makes it absurd that any degree of temptation could even almost occur. It's wild that Procrustes was like, don't you want to sleep in the bed? What are you talking about? We just had this. No, obviously not, my guy. You're gonna have to kill me the normal way. Sorry. But more to the point, and more the reason I didn't like the way they handled this section was because it robbed Percy of a cool moment. I think one thing that I've kind of conveyed thus far is that I'm not married to that many scenes in the Percy Jackson series. I'm more married to the overall premise, the vibes, the themes, the characters. The scenes themselves, most of them I can stand to see them changed or done without. Obviously there are scenes that I love, but like most of them, as long as it feels like the themes and characters of the book are being gotten across, I'm not that stressed. But the Procrustes scene is one that I did like. In the book, in that scene, Percy tricked Procrustes into getting into one of his own beds, and that trapped him, and that was cool. I like it when Percy tricks the villains. He's a wily hero. We love a wily hero. But the way the show approaches it is Percy just has a kind of passionless conversation with Procrustes, and then Annabeth, invisible, pushes Procrustes onto a bed, and it's like, that was nothing. No offense to the actors did great with what they had, but that scenario was nothing. It's kind of something that, oh, Procrustes is also a son of Poseidon, so that's a point of connection. It didn't feel like we really did anything with it. Procrustes just said a few ominous things, and then Annabeth pushed him onto a bed, and like, no one was really brave or smart in that situation. I mean, I guess Percy was kind of smart for knowing ahead of time who Procrustes was, but I like it more when he's able to think on the fly and overcome a foe by just, you know, being clever. I guess it's the difference between being clever in the I already knew that sense and being clever in the I thought through it sense. I wanted him to be clever in the I thought through the situation and figured out what to do, not clever in the I walked into this already knowing what was going on and I'm 2 steps ahead at all times. Like, no, I don't want that. I don't want you to be 2 steps ahead. Why? New point, but one that I can't really elaborate on that much. I feel like the show maybe underemphasized the degree to which Percy wasn't supposed to happen. And that's not a matter of exposition, because they did say, oh, he's a forbidden child, also Thalia was a forbidden child. I don't think they really emphasized like, oh, they swore not to do this. Just finding out about you is a problem. Poseidon can't like go and see Sally. That's not allowed. When the show had Poseidon go and see Sally, first of all, yeah, it's quite romantic that they still see each other and still care about each other. That's great. But the way that he shows up, and it's implied, oh, he can't talk to Percy because Zeus would be mad, or he can't talk to Percy because if Percy knew about him, then monsters would eat him, or something like that. The books had it more the case where he can't acknowledge Percy because Zeus can't know about Percy. It's not just that he's not allowed to claim this kid or acknowledge this kid. He wasn't supposed to have this kid. This kid is a secret. Going to see Sally is still kind of tipping your hand a little more than I think the book would have condoned. But that's more vibes than anything. I don't think anything in book canon necessarily stands against the idea that he could do this. Another thing that I think is more of a vibe change than an actual textual change is that any use of Percy's water powers read more as intervention from Poseidon than powers that Percy himself was able to exhibit. Percy isn't just accessing the power of Poseidon. Percy is a powerful demigod. Many times in this series and the next series, Percy is specifically called a powerful demigod. Demigods themselves have innate powers that gods are scared of and titans are scared of. It takes a demigod and a god to defeat a giant or whatever that deal was. I'm not entirely sure that innate power was gotten across in the show. And this is early on, so he hasn't done that much stuff yet. But a lot of times when ocean powers or water powers happened, it read as Poseidon going, don't mess with my kid. It didn't read as Percy just having water powers.
One major factor that I think influenced this feeling is actually the St. Louis Arch mistake. For those who don't know, when writing the book The Lightning Thief, Rick Riordan mistakenly believed that the river was directly beneath the arch, so he had Percy falling straight down into it when he fell from the arch. He fell straight down from the arch into the river. In reality, there is a bit of land distance between the water and the arch, so the adaptation had to make a change to accommodate that. A lot of book fans wondered in advance whether it would be that Percy was blasted a certain distance horizontally before falling straight down, or whether he would fall straight down and the water would kind of reach for him. The show went with the latter, which in turn affected how Percy's powers came across. In the book, him falling straight down into water and then exhibiting the ability to survive the fall and breathe underwater and stuff is a series of events that gives the reader no reason to question that the power is his in the situation. In the show, he's falling straight down and the water is the active agent in bringing him to safety, which just as a matter of optics comes across like someone else is helping him. It could be interpreted as a reflex to save himself or a reaction of the water to him being in danger, but the most obvious interpretation is that he's falling and his dad catches him. Really takes some of the power out of Percy's hands there, which isn't ideal. Maybe if there had been a shot of him turning towards the water and at all seeming like he had some kind of supernatural interaction with the water, maybe the outcome would have been different. But as it stands, that's kind of what we're left with. It's unfortunate, but it's a pretty minor detail in the scheme of things.
Next point, Sally. So first of all, let me go point by point. I do think that Sally is characterized differently in the show than she is in the books. I'm not talking about her yelling at Percy that one time in that one flashback. She's a mom and she's having a tough time. The book does kind of imply that Sally doesn't yell at Percy because there's a part in the 3rd chapter where she is stern with Percy and he describes it as a tone she'd never used before. It's suggested that she doesn't generally express her authority in that way. We'll address that a little bit later, though. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm also not talking about her vibes with Gabe, really. Her interactions with Gabe are significantly different in the book than they are in the show, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. In the book, she did more treat Gabe as an authority figure to be appealed to and reasoned around. The reason Percy loves blue food so much is because it's representative of one of the few times that Sally stood up to Gabe, because Gabe said there are no blue foods, and Sally was like, okay, I'm gonna make a bunch of blue food. moods. So the Sally in the show where she's actually willing to spar verbally with Gabe, that's different, and I'm fine with that.
One aspect of the Gabe-Sally dynamic that I do think was a problem is the fact that they made Gabe unemployed. In the book, he owned a hardware store and Sally worked at a candy store. The show states that Sally is the only one employed.
If you're gonna live under my roof, you gotta live by my rules.
Your roof? My mom is the only one employed here.
So the subtext is that Gabe is some lazy leech who nevertheless tries to exhibit financial control over Sally just on the basis of being her man, which first of all plays into stereotypes about the unemployed that I find unproductive, and second of all just feels like such a weird choice character-wise that it almost feels like the only thing it accomplishes is playing into stereotypes about the unemployed.
They're just different characterizations, and I'm fine with both. And also, this isn't going to be so much a critique as an exploration of a feeling, but her vibes toward Grover were the things that kind of didn't feel of Sally for me. So in the first episode of the show, Grover shows up to the little lake house where she and Percy are talking, and she's trying to convince Percy that he's a demigod and explain everything. Grover shows up like, hey, actually, you're not gonna get to have the whole night like we thought you would because danger is coming right now, so you gotta leave. Sally is kind of snarky and curt with Grover. She's very vocally not happy that he's here.
Oh boy, she didn't tell you about... You didn't tell him about me?
You're early.
When I first saw it, I was kind of like, I don't like the way she's talking to him. I don't feel that she's in the wrong morally. I just don't feel good seeing her talk to him like that. And I was glad that I listened to pretty much its commentary for this moment because they hadn't read the books and they specifically commented that they perceived Sally as speaking to Grover like he was an adult. And that's also the feeling that I had. And of course he is. The character of Grover is 24 in human years. He's still a child in satyr years, but it felt to me, and I guess also it felt to pretty much it, that she was speaking to Grover like an adult, and that was what I wasn't particularly vibing with. Whereas in the book, she was very much talking to Grover like he was a child alongside her son, kind of chiding them both, and that was, I guess, the difference that stood out to me. And I know that it's weird to have a whole section about 3 lines of dialogue that she shared with Grover, but just the way that I was not feeling that vibe for her really felt fascinating to me in a way that I wanted to explore. On the immediate level, of course, she's allowed to have feelings. She's a character, she's a complex human, she's allowed to be kind of annoyed that her brief time with her son is being cut short by circumstances that aren't in her control. Obviously, Grover is not at fault for that. The fact that she's expressing it at him that way is a flaw, but she's allowed to have flaws. She's a human character. The thing is that almost irrespective of her role in the books, Sally's role in just the collective headspace of the fandom, and obviously I can't speak to your individual interpretation of the character, but the collective mindset of the fandom is that Sally is everyone's mom. A lot of the fanfiction will place Sally in the role of caring for and loving all of Percy's friends who don't have good home lives or families to return to. Obviously, and part of the reason why I'm drawing attention to this is there is a lot to be said about the idea of female characters being made to be mothers to everyone as kind of proof of their moral goodness. Sally should be allowed to be a woman who has a son and not be the mom of everyone he's ever met just because they need parents. But the temptation to treat older characters as parental figures towards child characters who have unstable home lives is something that exists across a lot of characters in a lot of fandoms and not necessarily just female characters.
I love Steve Harrington's character. He's such a mom taking care of those kids. Didn't he... You're talking about Steve Harrington from Stranger Things? Yeah, duh. Isn't his whole character just like a manipulative, jealous, insecure, kind of a piece of shit?
We don't want to always have to flatten female characters into selfless mother archetypes and characterize them solely by their nurturing and their goodness and never give them an opportunity to express anything outside of that. But the temptation is going to be very strong when the character is characterized as selfless in the books and is a mother, and the series is populated almost exclusively by children with unstable home lives. The fact that it is a children's book series and a lot of people read it when they were children, and maybe a lot of the readers took comfort in the idea of Sally taking their comfort characters under her wing. It makes sense is what I'm saying. I think that both sentiments need space. I think both ideas need space to breathe. On the other side of it, a lot of people are currently getting comfort from the idea of Sally as someone who maybe reminds them of their actual mom in that she now has flaws and stuff, and that's really cool too. Or, whoa, now that I think about it, a lot of people who read Percy Jackson as kids might actually be parents now and feel comforted in the idea of a flawed Sally in that way. So essentially, I'm not saying the changes are bad at all. I do feel like Sally was the biggest character change, except I guess maybe Hades. Oh wait, there's another one.
Okay, so let's talk about Charon. You know, Charon, the boatman. We stood in the shadows of Valencia Boulevard, looking up at gold letters etched in black marble. DOA Recording Studios. It was almost midnight, but the lobby was brightly lit and full of people. The furniture was black leather, and every seat was taken. The security guard's desk was a raised podium, so we had to look up at him. He was tall and elegant, with chocolate-colored skin and— oh no, they whitewashed Charon! He was tall and elegant, with chocolate-colored skin and bleached blonde hair. What? He wore tortoise-shell shades and a silk Italian suit that matched his hair. A black rose was pinned to his lapel under a silver name tag. And of course the obligatory line, "How did you die then?" I nudged Grover. "Oh, drowned in the bathtub." "All three of you?" Charon asked. We nodded. "Big bathtub." Charon looked mildly impressed. So as you can see, in the book, Charon is characterized as this receptionist. He's standing at the desk. He's black and blonde and with a buzz cut. He has like a rose on his lapel. People waiting to go to the underworld are in a literal waiting room with waiting room stuff. The show just kind of took the usual underworld aesthetic. There's rocky cliffs. There's a crowd of people waiting to make their way to the underworld. It's foggy and Charon's in a cloak, and like they did that. And a lot of people didn't like it. When I saw it, I wasn't mad, but I was like, oh, they changed it, like the movie did. Only the musical kind of went that route, making Charon kind of comedic and using the little DOA joke. I saw some people saying like, oh, this isn't just some small change. This is a huge tonal shift. It's symptomatic of how this show is so dark and gritty relative to the books, which are so comedic and fun. And I don't agree with that. I do think that it's tonally different than it was in the books. I don't think that it's a microcosm of the show refusing to indulge the silliness of the books. The show had Auntie M Garden Emporium. Even though I don't like the handling of the Procrustes scene, the show did have Procrustes selling mattresses at a crusty old mattress shop. The show shied away from specifically doing it with the underworld. And I think it was a mistake. I think that they should have played with it a little more. There's different writers for different episodes, and maybe those writers just weren't as comfortable with it as the other writers. But more to the point, I think that episode was more focused on satisfying the drama of the situation they were in, and I can see why they might have wanted to do that. I can see why they might have thought, oh, we don't really want to play with the underworld too much when we're going into it. We want the audience to feel some apprehension about going to the underworld. I do think it would have been a little bit weird for the tone if they had included like, oh, you know, Charon's just chill. Basically, I feel like they were scared to try to make Charon in character for his book counterpart, and instead they just retreated to what was safe and familiar as far as underworld imagery. And I think that instead they should have given it a shot. But I don't necessarily agree with the people who are like, this is exactly like the entire rest of the show, too dark, etc. Like, no, the show is having fun. Do you remember the consensus song? The camp was fun. And also the books were grim about a lot of stuff.
The movies were simply better.
Where are you coming from? What are you drawing from? You're wrong.
Some of the tone issues I think people had are more to do with the score than the writing. Some scenes are definitely written to be comedic, but then you listen to how they play out in the actual show and the comedy beats are lacquered over with a dramatic orchestral score, and I do think that was a mistake. I think some of those moments needed the music to be gone and the camera angle to be different. Like if we just look at this exchange specifically.
No one's turning back till we all come back.
No one comes back.
Dude, don't make me come back out there.
And then imagine it without the background music. It would come across much more comedic than it does, and I think that might contribute to some of the problem people have with the tone.
Oh, I almost forgot to mention this. Oh boy, yeah, about that reveal. So we find out Luke is a lightning thief, that's fine. But Ares knows about Kronos. Like, he did this knowing about Kronos. That's such like a small detail to be such a huge difference. Here's how it went down in the book. So Luke stole the Helm of Darkness from Hades so that he could steal the Master Bolt from Zeus. Luke stole the lightning bolt, and he was supposed to just take the lightning bolt and bring it to Kronos. That was the plan, was Luke takes the lightning bolt and brings it to Kronos. Obviously they didn't want this whole weird spectacle to happen. They wanted him to secretly take the lightning bolt, secretly give it to Kronos. Instead, what happens is Luke steals the bolt, and Zeus is like, someone stole my bolt. Hey, other gods and goddesses, go find who stole the bolt. Luke is like, I don't have time to give this to Kronos now because everyone's looking for me. But he tried to, and Ares caught him. And Ares was going to just take those things back to their owners, and Luke was just gonna be killed, but
Kronos spoke in Luke's mind and told him, hey, here's how you can get Ares on your side, and used Ares' want for a war among the gods and how cool that would be to get Ares to not rat them out. He knew nothing about Kronos' role in it. Ares had no idea that Kronos was involved in the slightest. He just wanted a war to happen because that would be fun, because he likes that, because he's Ares. What the show did instead was, and I'm not gonna necessarily say that it's a good or bad change, I just think it's very cool, is that the show said, no, Ares knew that he was doing this for Kronos. What this introduces is a sentiment that Percy kind of expresses directly to Zeus when he's at Olympus, which is the moment there's a bigger player on the stage, at least some of these gods are going to turn against you because you have not earned any loyalty, you've only earned fear. They're serving you because you're powerful, so as soon as Kronos shows up, the other gods are on Kronos' side. To use that small change of like, no, Ares knew that he was working for Kronos, to use that and go, hey, Ares was working for Kronos on purpose. Ares was working for Kronos. Ares was on Kronos' side. Is Zeus gonna just let him get away with that? The way they characterize Zeus in the end is also different from the book, because in the book, Zeus is not willing to talk about Kronos at all. In the show, Zeus kind of takes the mention of Kronos as like, okay, sometimes Titans try to come back, sometimes we have to kill them again, it's fine, it's whatever. And it seems like he's putting that on a little bit. He doesn't not care that Kronos is trying to come back, but he's Zeus and he can't express vulnerability in front of this half-blood. But he's not as close to the matter as he was in the book. Boy, I said earlier that I wasn't saying that it was a positive or negative change, and I'm still not. I'm not saying that it's a good change or a bad change, I'm saying that I enjoy it a lot. It's very much giving the same feeling as Lemony Snicket or Daniel Handler doing the Netflix series for Series of Unfortunate Events and being like, okay, I'm gonna tweak stuff ahead of time since I'm now able to retroactively change the series that I wrote. I enjoyed the conversation between Percy and Zeus. I enjoyed Zeus's whole deal. His whole demeanor was very well conveyed, I think. I enjoyed that the deadline had passed, and I love the way that was utilized. Initially, of course, when they said the deadline's passed, there's no point returning the bolt at this point, there's war happening anyway, I know that everyone was kind of like, huh, what's that for? And of course, now we know the reason they did that was so that Poseidon would have to surrender for Percy. Instead of it being like, we averted a war, we no longer have to do it, now it's like, the war started. The war did start. And Poseidon had to surrender his pride and say, I lost, okay? I lost for Percy's sake. And I think that was a good moment for them. Oh, the last episode, when they started it with Luke doing the narration, that was so good. That was really good. When I saw it, I was immediately like, oh, it's like how he did the reprise of Good Kid in the musical. I love Luke using Percy's words, and now we're acknowledging the parallels between these characters. It's so good! Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I shouldn't have done that. It got stuck. Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy cause I got me some thoughts about season 2. Oh dear, now my cat's getting jumpy. Just some thoughts and suggestions and then we'll be through. Okay. Here's how, I don't need this uncapped yet. Okay, so here's how we're gonna do this. We have categories. This is a bubble map, and I might regret that framing device, but we're gonna see. This is gonna be a combination of what I want and what I think is gonna happen. It'll make sense when I go through it. Categories are running gags, relationships, cascading changes, tone, flashbacks. If I thought about it a little longer, I would have instead called it framing devices. Our first item to add to the bubble map. Under cascading changes, Ares thing. Remember how excited I got about that change where Ares knows that he was serving Kronos and like now it's him explicitly being a turncoat to Zeus? That could cause some cascading changes. They could probably get away with just not acknowledging it. They could pull that off if they wanted to. What I think they should instead do though is feed that into Clarisse's quest. There's a lot that can be mined from that. This idea that her dad did a thing and she has to make up for it in the eyes of everyone. There we go. Essentially, I want them to play with this. Next up on the relationships bubble, Annabeth. A lot of people have their little jokes of like, oh, do they know it's supposed to be a slow burn? It seems like we're getting so much Persebeth so quickly. Actually, it's very canon. They did seem to have a crush on each other pretty early on. I think their current trajectory is pretty on point, which brings me to photo in binder. So in the Sea of Monsters book, in like the first or second chapter, it's mentioned that Percy printed out a picture of Annabeth to put on or in his binder for school, his school binder. The thing that I'm wondering is whether they're going to adapt that with the times. Printing out a picture and like taping or gluing it to your binder, or just like sliding it in the little clear plastic in front of your binder, that might read, at least to the writers, as something that comes out of the 2000s school era. I'm sure kids are still sticking stuff in the front of their binder, but I can see them going, hey, what if we take that idea and make it more Gen Z? My first thought was, what if he saves a picture that she sent him and makes it his lock screen background or his phone's home screen? And you may now be thinking, demigods aren't supposed to have cell phones because monsters, etc. And we haven't established that yet, so we don't yet know if it's canon to the show. Although we do have iris messages, so it seems like we don't want to make those obsolete by bringing cell phones into the mix. They could just play it straight and be like, he has her photo in his binder. I think a lock screen might be a little bit too intense. I don't know, is it? What's the social etiquette around having someone as your lock screen? My lock screen is a can of corn. Next up, Tyson. Obviously we're gonna have Tyson. They'd be completely unable to cut Tyson out. But my thought is there's gonna be some changes to the way Tyson's characterization is expressed. I could see them in a writer's room maybe saying to themselves, hey, do we need to be kind of careful ableism wise? The canon things that we know about Tyson's character are that he's homeless, that he is described as ugly, he's highly emotional, and he talks like he's much younger than he is. The movie chickened out of most of that. I don't know what their approach is going to be. I'm just saying that I could see a writer's room sitting there like, okay, he can be homeless, obviously. It's cool to have unhoused representation in kids' media, I'm sure. The way his dialogue is written, again, it's representation of the way someone might speak, but there are characters in the book who call him the R slur. I'm sure they're not gonna have that happen in the show. Just in general, I'm gonna add a little bubble for Tyson, just kind of ableism, question mark, and that is red because I'm connecting it to tone. I think the tone around Tyson is going to be kind of different. But more in the realm of Tyson as it pertains to Percy's relationships, I wonder if they're going to sanitize Percy's reaction to Tyson. In the book, Percy, he's Tyson's friend, he defends Tyson from bullies, but also when it's revealed that Tyson is his half-brother through Poseidon, he is kind of embarrassed by him. Now, I do think it would be more fun if he weren't embarrassed by Tyson, but I can also see the argument of we don't want to remove Percy's character flaws because that's a less complicated viewing of the character. Once again, we're getting a question mark. Embarrassed question mark? Now, Tyson's relationship with Annabeth is going to be interesting because in the book, Annabeth has a bias against Cyclopes because of what happened to Thalia. Here we have said that the Furies, including Mrs. Dodds, were the ones who killed Thalia. We have not indicated any Cyclops involvement. They might just erase that character detail. I'm not gonna act like I haven't made a Tumblr post saying that I'm tired of the trope where the black character is fantasy racist against the fantasy creatures, but I don't consider that relevant to this. I'm gonna put a dotted line here. Boom, 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 boom. I think what I would want to see out of the Tyson-Annabeth relationship is not her thinking that he's inherently an enemy because he's a Cyclops. I would definitely enjoy if we used Annabeth's association with Tyson as a source of tension between her and Luke later on. It'd be cool to have an Annabeth who's like, Luke, you betrayed me, and a Luke who's like, well, you're betraying Thalia. I don't know. At this stage, it would feel like a retcon if we said, and also Cyclopes were involved, but there's ways around that. You can wedge Cyclopes into the story somehow. I'm putting this under cascading changes, but this is something that I don't want to see continue moving forward. The characters have got to walk unwittingly into traps sometimes. When season 2 comes around, I don't want them rolling up onto Cersei's island like, hey, you're Cersei, you're gonna turn me into a guinea pig. No, 86 that, we're not doing that anymore. A funny lampshade for this would be if at the very beginning of the season, Percy's just like, oh man, I don't know anything about the Odyssey. Oh no, my mom never told me a single Odyssey fact. I guess we're going into this with no information. I kind of should have put that one over here, but it's okay. Speaking of Cersei, a line from Traps and a line from Tone, and we're putting Cersei right in the middle of it. You want to know why? Because I think we need to hit Cersei with the Sirius beam. So we already have Heroes of Olympus with Rhaena as our example of a character being like, hey, I don't like what you did to Cersei's island. What I think would be kind of cool would be if we really leaned into some moral gray there. Like we almost did with Medusa. The idea with Medusa was she's not necessarily a monster, but then she chooses to act against us in an unnecessarily violent way, so we had to respond accordingly. So here's what I want for the Cersei section. First of all, I want them to walk unwittingly into Cersei's grasp. Percy Percy gets turned into a guinea pig. Annabeth gets her makeover because a lot of fans want to see that Annabeth makeover and that Percy guinea pig. I have seen a lot of fan art for it and it's all gorgeous. I want Cersei to have a maternal vibe towards the girls in her care, and I don't want that for no reason. I want that to aggravate Annabeth's mom issues. We created some mother issues for her last season, and I want to just absolutely take that to the bank. So with Cersei, we're going full parent-aged adult approval, and Annabeth is putty in her hands, and then they have to just destroy everything Cersei has, and that's gonna hurt. I want to play with that drama. I want to feel bad that we're destroying Cersei's place. I want Annabeth to feel bad. I want Percy to feel a little bit bad, even though he was just a guinea pig.
The Amityville, how are you gonna make the audience feel sympathy for a character who just finished turning our hero into a guinea pig?
Guess what? That's not my job. That's the writer's job. But in all seriousness, I think they can pull it off. Just have the guinea pigs be really well cared for. Honestly, as long as the guinea pigs aren't suffering and they're also pampered, I think it would work pretty well. If we give Cersei a weird kind of, actually our boys are better off as guinea pigs, then I think that a lot of people would be pretty happy with her as a character. There's a lot of pool to swim in here, and I'm giving them the whole deep end. I'm just saying we could play with Annabeth's feelings, and I would like that a lot. You want to know why I would like that a lot? Because this season, I want the flashbacks to be Annabeth flashbacks. This one I did not come up with myself. This one I saw on a Tumblr post, which I will show on screen now. I love the idea of bringing back the framing device of having flashbacks of the character's childhood every episode, but instead of doing it with Percy, this season we do it with Annabeth. We're dealing with her feelings about Luke, we're introducing the audience to Talia before she comes back, and we're digging into Annabeth's issues with her mom. Annabeth angst. Circle it! As for running gags I want to see come back, consensus song. I'm also connecting that to the flashback thing because it'd be cool if maybe in a flashback we see that Grover's been doing this for a while, although that might be a bit of a retcon because I think that Annabeth reacted with a little bit of confusion when he did it that one time, but maybe he did it with Thalia and Luke. There we go. Now what I mean when I say that I want the consensus song to come back is not that I want Grover to just earnestly do it again, because I feel like that would be out of character, and also because he's not going to be there, huh? He's going to be kind of, I'm thinking probably instead Percy would initiate it as a joke or kind of like a sarcastic callback or something like that. I mentioned this in my previous video, but I am curious how they're going to handle the ghost ship. I am still highly curious as to whether they can make it work for them being Confederate soldiers. The movie just did it. The movie didn't play with it at all, but I kind of want to do something with it. Let's branch that off the Ares thing because it is Ares' power that provides the ghost ship, and that could be given a new context now that he's kind of in question by the other Olympians. Maybe he's providing the ghost ship as a last-ditch effort to maintain his pride and his standing. This would be dark, and I'm not saying they will or should do this, but it is possible that it could be like, this is the best ship available. It happens to be a Confederate ship, but this is the one you're gonna have to use, and like Clarisse doesn't want to use a Confederate ship, but he's like, this is the best one that is available, and also you have to regain my honor, so you have to use it. I think that would be too dark though, the idea of like, she doesn't want to use a Confederate ship, but he made her. Like, I think that's too much, and I'm gonna connect this to tone. Just because the Confederate ship was handled entirely matter-of-factly in the book, I think if we do anything at all with it, then it plays into the tone thing. One thing that I don't think that they should hit with the Sirius beam, or at least I don't necessarily think they should hit it with the Sirius beam, but I think they might anyway. Party ponies! That should be capitalized. So the party ponies are highly comedic in the book, and I think that the fact that Chiron is so stodgy and straight-laced in both the books and the show lend the potential for the contrast between him and the party ponies to be comedic, but since Chiron getting suspected of poisoning Thalia's tree and getting kicked out of camp is a serious and sad thing, I could see the show being like, oh, we don't know how to balance the tone of that, so we're just not going to. We're gonna let the centaurs be the usual brooding, sky-watching centaurs. We saw some centaurs galloping in the first season when they were on the train, and those weren't fun party centaurs, those were just regular centaurs. If the party ponies make it in name onto the show at all, I'm sure they're gonna be fun because they're called the party ponies and they know that they can't drain the fun from the party ponies. What I'm saying is I don't know if the concept of the party ponies is gonna make it. And if it does, I think it might be like a throwaway line. Like maybe Percy asks Chiron, where are you gonna go? And Chiron goes, well, unless I want to hang out with the party ponies, I guess I've got to go to my family, or something like that. Another tone thing, and this one largely plays into my established pattern of using this season for Annabeth angst, the siren scene. The siren scene was already pretty emotional in the book because Annabeth was like crying and stuff. I think they just have to play that 100% straight and it'll be completely fine. Wait, relationship bubble, you're looking pretty lonely over there. It's like I forgot someone. Oh wait, Grover. So this season's gonna be the start of the empathy link between Percy and Grover. There's a lot they can do with that, huh? I love Percy and Grover's empathy link as a concept in the books, and I love the prospect of seeing And I really like the prospect of seeing the same thing reflected in the characters as portrayed on the show. I think those actors could do a lot of fun things with it. I am putting a list of the chapter titles from Sea of Monsters on the screen right now. And now I am highlighting which chapter titles I think are going to make it as episode titles. The rest of them, of course, will be discarded. Okay, running gags. This is a minor thing, but in the show, Dionysus consistently calls Percy Peter Johnson. I want to move away from that. In the books, he kind of switches it up. Like sometimes it's Peter Johnson, sometimes it's Perry Johansson. Like it's different names. He doesn't just think his name is Peter Johnson. He forgets his name and makes up different ones all the time. Ignore the fact that I made a mistake. So I want the Dionysus Percy names to be different now. I want us to vary it up. I don't want to stick with the Peter Johnson thing. There are other P and J names, I promise. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna connect the sirens to Annabeth's bubble, because that's a big thing for her relationship with Percy. The way that he has to like restrain her from the sirens, that's a cool moment for them. Okay, I just texted my Percy Jackson friend, you know the one. Here's something I didn't think of, more hand-to-hand combat scenes. I forgot, yeah, people didn't like the action scenes in season 1. I'm gonna take this off actually. A lot of people didn't like the action scenes in season 1. It seems like that needs to improve. I guess that would have to go under tone. Yeah, generally what I heard from people who had complaints about the show's action scenes was that the show's action scenes were too short. Specifically, my friend said hand-to-hand combat. Hopefully we get to see Clarisse really cook. In fact, relationships, Clarisse. I'm doing a calculation as to how hard it would be to connect his relationship with Clarisse to the Aries thing. I really think his relationship with Clarisse should be informed by the Aries thing. Anyway, I am gonna connect the action thing tentatively to Clarisse, because I feel like she can be a good provider of like hand-to-hand combat scenes. She could be a good reason to see more of that. That being said though, I'm gonna connect that to cascading changes somehow. Pray for me. I'm gonna make one that says cunning solutions and connect it here, because we do want to see more hand-to-hand combat. We do love that. There's room to fit that in. They got a lot of stuff they have to fight. They're gonna have to play dodgeball with the doggone Laestrygonian giants or whatever. But thinking back to that moment in Procruste's place where they replaced a scene of Percy outwitting a foe with Annabeth just physically overcoming a foe, I don't want to see any more of that. So while I do agree that the action scene situation needs to be addressed, what I don't want to see is it replacing the cunning solutions that characters would otherwise have to certain problems. I want them to trick their opponents in fun, silly ways. What else did she say? More equal distribution of character study and development. That's kind of what I was doing with the Annabeth stuff. We can do more Grover stuff. He's not gonna be in it a bunch is the thing. He's gonna be on the island for a lot of it. I think similar to Thalia, we're gonna get Grover through flashbacks. And of course through the empathy link, like he's gonna be in Percy's dreams and stuff. More color is an interesting point. I think Cersei's place would be a good chance for that. The Hydra could be a good chance for that. We could get some colorful scales or something. So yeah, showrunners, pretty straightforward. Just follow all of this and I think you'll be fine. They're already doing great as far as earning a lot of TikTok edits. Ooh, another thing that I would like to see become maybe a running gag. Sally's notebook. Yeah, remember that last scene in the last episode where Sally is like, hey, you had a dream about Kronos? Let me pull out my dream notebook I apparently have and write down what your dream was about Kronos. I want to see more of that. I want to see Sally like jot stuff down every now and then just to get a sense that she's doing her own little independent sleuthing and just like keeping track of things. It'd be a fun detail to keep around, I feel. I wonder if George and Martha are gonna make the cut. The snakes that are on Hermes Caduceus. That's not it. Caduceus. You know, George and Martha, the snakes on Hermes Caduceus. Caduceus. In the books, when we first meet Hermes, he's got the Caduceus with him, and George and Martha are on the Caduceus, and they're talking and being all comedic. I wonder if George and Martha will be brought in. We've already met Hermes now. In the books, we don't meet Hermes until Sea of Monsters, so we would have met Hermes in season 2. But now we've already met Hermes, so the thought is, are George and Martha gonna be there? Is he gonna have his Caduceus next time we see him?
If she's so smart, explain the owl. She talks to it like all the time, this fat, nasty little feathered rodent.
I have half a mind to add Hermes to the relationships bubble. In fact, that is worth doing. I'm gonna add a bubble. Relationships with the gods. And you know what I would like to see come of that? I want to see Hestia. Hestia, the goddess of the hearth. In the books, Hestia likes to chill by where they sacrifice the food. Like when they go up to make their little sacrifice of food, Hestia usually or often chills by that little fire. In the show, when they said they were about to sacrifice their food, I thought, oh, are we going to get to see Hestia? But we didn't. I would like to see Hestia. We're going to have to see Hermes again. I guess we don't have to, but in the book we do. Since Luke has turned now, it would make sense to see Hermes again. See how he feels, get his take on the whole thing. I don't think we really
really need to add Ares to that. Like, he doesn't have a nuanced relationship with Percy. They just don't like each other. I don't think I want to use season 2 to explore his relationship with Poseidon all that much, especially since this is the Sea of Monsters and he's going to be tapping into a lot of ocean-related powers. I want this to be our opportunity to explore the idea that Percy has innate power and is not just like using Poseidon's abilities. So we definitely want to see him having that nautical coordinates power where he just intuitively knows where he is in the sea. But I don't necessarily want to see him communing with Poseidon to achieve that. Or really, I feel like we did a lot for his relationship with Poseidon in season 1, and I'm cool with them keeping their distance in season 2 so we can explore other stuff. I just kind of want to spend time on other stuff right now. Anyway, I think Tyson and Polyphemus are kind of a window into his relationship with Poseidon in that they are his brothers. Both of them are his half-brothers. So I think that that can be our Poseidon in, and we don't have to actually deal with Poseidon himself. I'm not saying they're not going to, I'm just saying that I'm not particularly interested in seeing more of that in season 2. Future seasons, sure, but season 2 I don't necessarily want to see more of it. Speaking of future seasons, I'm coming back to this. The idea that Annabeth becomes our flashback POV character in this season opens the door for other characters to be our flashback POV characters in future seasons, and that could be really cool. What I'm saying is, I want Percy to always be the dream person. I don't ever want to see another demigod's dreams except Percy, because he's the main character. Flashbacks, I do want to see from Annabeth in season 2, and I'm thinking Thalia in season 3. I'm gonna be pronouncing her name that way, and other ways. Who knows? Who cares? Or maybe Bianca, but I feel like if we have Bianca's flashbacks in season 3, then there is an inherent flaw to such a framework. In season 4, maybe Nico becomes our flashback person. Season 4, it could be Nico. Could be Grover. Season 4, it could be Grover. Then we can kind of get into the Pan stuff, maybe. Council of Cloven Elders, etc. And then season 5, maybe just no flashbacks in season 5. In season 5, we already know all we're gonna know about these characters. In fact, I'm adding those bubbles to this too. Why not? Season 3, Thalia. Season 4, Grover. And then none in season 5. I think they've already done a good job introducing the character's fatal flaws, but the siren situation is when we find out in words that Annabeth's fatal flaw is pride. And speaking of them finding things out in words, I do want them to actually say that the name of Percy's sword is Riptide, because they haven't done that yet. And I think that's everything, unless I add some addendums. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you appreciate my thoughts. I hope you leave your own thoughts in the comments on what you want to see in season 2 and what you did or didn't like in season 1. Have a great day. Find a silly scarf and tie it around your head. Drink some water. Deliver a meaningful compliment to someone who loves you. And have a great day. There were holes in the roof, and the rain was coming through, and the cats and the rats, they were playing peekaboo. When who should awaken but the woman in the house? With her white spotted apron and her calico blouse, she began to frighten. Inside I'll have to stay and empty all the chamber pots and scrub the floors and such. For what's there to do with a fine white horse? It seems to me not much.